When Mark passed away on a soggy Tuesday, sorrow found a voice. It was the gentle click of a crib that wouldn't stop moving back and forth. A ringing telephone that refused to cease. Bills, condolences, silence. I was a 29-year-old widow with a 5-year-old and an 8-month-old baby. I kept my head until I couldn't. Just for a little while, I said to myself, leaving Leah with my parents' beige house and trimmed hedges and friendly smiles. They raised me. He'll be safe. A week afterwards, driving Jacob to kindergarten, he stiffened. "Mom," he whispered, then wept. "We must go back to Grandma's now." I reversed the car. We crept the final half-block in silence. Through the living room window, a hidden childhood reality clawed its way out, reached for my baby, and compelled me to recall who my parents truly were. My name is Anna Reed. The week following my husband Mark Reed's death in a delivery truck accident. Time seeped away. Morning dissolved into night. My world diminished to bottle capacity, daycare wait lists, and emails I read without comprehending. I'm a middle-tier UX designer in Dallas, getting paid to break down complicated flows. But grief was anything but straightforward. "Eat," my friend Chloe would remind me, pushing Tupperware across an island in my kitchen. Jacob colored at the table. Leo wept like he'd ingested thunder. I tested nannies. I tested a Ghostbuster sitter. I tested coffee and prayer, most often in succession. Each blink, another due date ticked by. Another meal became moldy. Another bill poked me with the reminder that love doesn't renew deadlines. My parents, Richard and Helen, resided 30 minutes away in a development where mailboxes were the same, and the HOA newsletter included Sudoku. As a child, their house had rules that sounded sensible until you lived them. "Quiet is respect," Dad would remind me. "Tears are manipulation," Mom would conclude, smiling as though forecasting the weather. "You need help," Helen said over the phone, her voice warm as just brewed tea. "Let us take Leo during the day. Jacob can come after school. Routine is good for children. You were perfect on a routine. Perfect." I heard the word freeze inside me. I remembered straight picture frames, a chore chart laminated like law. I remembered less than I should. Memory wears down edges when you grow up having to walk barefoot. "Just for a week," I said to Chloe, "until I get caught up on work." "You trust them?" she asked. "I want to," I said. The first few days were fine enough to make me feel silly for worrying. Mom sent reports, a snapshot of Leo in a knit blanket, a text about his food, his naps. Dad remained largely out of camera, his large, prominent hand visible every so often, a comfort. Jacob returned quietly, which I confused with tranquility, but minor things accumulated like lint. Leo jumped at a cabinet slamming shut. Jacob winced at the thermostat snapping on. At drop-off, Helen pressed her hand to my shoulder a fraction of a second too long, showing me out. "Don't wake the baby," she'd say, as if noise was a transgression. "Mom," Jacob said one evening, making circles in his mac and cheese, "Grandpa says babies cry to win." "Win what?" I asked. He shrugged. "The quiet game." I laughed too loudly, the sound cracking. "It's just a saying," I said to him. But later, when Leo woke at 2 a.m., screaming like the dark pinched him, I sat on the floor between their beds, watching the wall till morning. Monday dawned. My boss texted, "Any news on handoff?" I typed, backspaced, typed. My phone buzzed. "Helen, all is fine. He's asleep. Don't arrive early. He just dozed off." The text was harmless. The jolt in my gut wasn't. At pickup, their place seemed set up. Lemon fragrance, empty counters, one vase of hydrangeas placed against the table seam. Richard was sitting in his recliner, reading a newspaper as though he was trying out for a play. "Anna," he said, gaze on the page. "How's Leo?" I asked. "Quiet," he said. "Children can be." Helen hugged me. "He's settling. Babies require strong boundaries." "Strong," I said. After work. Jacob hugged his backpack to his chest. Grandpa says crying makes your voice ugly, he muttered. Crying releases your body to let go, I said, recalling my therapist after Mark's. I believed it then. I wanted to believe it now. Wednesday, a bruise unfolded on Leo's upper arm, small, thumb-shaped. Daycare toys? Helen had ventured before I asked, although Leo hadn't been in daycare. He's self-soothing as he learns about his body, she smiled. Isn't that cute? Cute? I repeated, the word bitter on my tongue. That evening, Jacob wet the bed for the second time in 2 years. He cried out, a sound he didn't recall. When I asked him about nightmares, he blinked repeatedly. We don't shout at Grandma's. Friday, the pediatrician certified Leo's weight gain. Relief came and slid away. I sat in my car, looking at the automatic doors of the clinic, opening like they were happy to see me go. Helen phoned. Don't bring Leo till 9, she said, bright. Richard has an early chore. It's quieter when the house is still. Still. The word burst in my chest. I remembered my childhood room, corners jagged with silence. All right, I said, resenting how tiny I sounded. Saturday mornings used to be pancake mornings, with Mark and Jacob on our balcony, syrup on PJs, Leo kicking his blankie like he was peddling a distant planet. Now they were laundry, pilfered crumbs of sleep and lists. Chloe arrived with coffee, caught me rearranging the spice rack like it was in my debt. You're humming, she told me. What's happening? Nothing I can say. Everything I can feel. She looked at me. Say it anyway. I opened my mouth, closed it. It's probably just early grief, I said, because that was safer than what my bones whispered. Okay, she said, not trusting me. But if your bones speak, answer them. Monday came with a headache and a list of things to do. I fed Leo, packed his backpack, drove to my parents. Helen took him with a slow, practiced smile. Richard nodded at the wall. Routine, he said, as if giving a benediction. I drove Jacob to school. At the intersection before the drop-off loop, his small hand gripped my wrist, shaking. Mom, he whispered, eyes glassy, we have to go back to Grandma's. Please, Leo needs you. The light turned green. Cars honked. I pulled over. Hazards on. Did something happen? He shook his head, then nodded. Just go. You tell yourself you'll be calm when it matters. You won't. I turned the car around. No plan, no breath. Fear blooming behind my ribs like ink and water. Stop here, Jacob instructed. 2 houses away. We can walk. Why? Just please. We crept along the sidewalk, hedges pruned to soldierly rigor. The front door was shut. Behind the living room window, a curtain hung a finger's width open, just enough for the truth to seep out. I heard Leo first, high and panicked, then Richard's voice, low and sawed. Quiet, quiet. Do you want the dark room? My body was ice hot. Helen stood near the couch, not holding Leo, but holding him back, hands under his arms, shaking him in brief, furious jolts. He does this for attention, she explained, voice silky. We don't reward it. Stop, Richard said, not to her, to the baby. He moved closer, face closed. The same face from 1,000 childhood dinners. You don't win here. Jacob's nails dug into my palm. See? He growled through tears. I told you. Something ripped within me, silencing the past. I saw myself at 5, 7, 10. The reprimand that smiled. The silent game. The don't shame us when I wept over a scraped knee. Memory lurched back like a dislocated shoulder. The pine-scented dark closet. The salt. The copper. Time lengthening until it pleaded. I didn't knock. I didn't breathe. I ran. The door slammed into the wall. Helen winced. Richard spun around, eyes level with displeasure, as if I were a door-to-door candy bar seller. What are you doing? Helen snapped, holding Leo close. I walked into the room, removed my baby from her grasp. He held on to me, weeping from the soles of his little feet. We're going, I said, low voice. No, mine. Don't dramatize.
Children require boundaries. Help does not bruise, I said, indicating Leo's arm. The thumbprint halo now plum dark. Helen's mouth grew thin. Anna, she said, soft as a blade. You were always sensitive. That's why you faltered as a girl. Too many feelings. Not enough discipline. Jacob leaned against my thigh. Don't leave me, he whispered. I won't, I replied. Not again. Richard stepped into the doorway, standing between us. You're crazy. Give me the baby. I sidled sideways, turning my body, Leo's cheek on my shoulder. I savored iron, resolve. Move, Dad. You'll apologize, he said. I looked at him, really looked, feeling nothing he could use. No, I got past him because he didn't expect me to. Abusers don't plan for their scripts to fail. The hallway was a tunnel, the front door a square of sky. I ran, Jacob's sneakers slapping beside me. Helen called my name, a voice I'd followed for decades.
I strapped Leo into his seat with shaking hands, opened the passenger door for Jacob, and drove. I didn't glance back. I cut corners like I could run faster than history, losing myself in traffic that was unaware a war had started and ended. We drove into our apartment complex. I shifted the car into park, forehead against the steering wheel. Jacob reached for me. Leo hiccuped into my collarbone. Mom, Jacob whispered. Yeah, baby. Are we safe now? We will be, I said. And for the first time in months, the words sounded like a plan, not a prayer. The apartment was small, but honest. I texted work, family emergency out today. I texted Chloe, come. I then called a number I hadn't called in years. Sarah, I asked when the line clicked. A breath. My older sister's voice was softer than memory. She'd left home at 18, never looking back. I'd reassured myself she'd outgrown us. The truth I was discovering was otherwise. I have to ask you something about Mom and Dad, about when we were little. Silence yawned like a trap door. Then, what did you see? I recounted the window, the shaking, the bruise, the threat of the dark room. My voice trembled but did not break. When I'd finished, I heard Sarah fumble keys. A bag, I'm coming over. She came with bags of groceries and a hug that seemed years of longing. Jacob leaned against her right away. Leo slept on my chest, fists relaxing. They did it to you, Sarah said. No introduction. They said they called it structure. When you were a toddler, you cried at night. Dad said you were testing him. He'd take you by the arms and shake you. Not hard, she clarified, flashing eyes, but enough. He called it resetting the fuss. Mom would watch. When you were 5, they came up with that closet, the quiet room. My stomach rolled as things clicked. I don't remember. That's surviving, she said. Your brain edits out what makes love impossible. I sat down hard. Why didn't you tell me? I tried, she said. You were 8 the last time I said anything, and Dad heard. He canceled your birthday party and told you it was my fault. I left at 18 so I wouldn't become them. Chloe showed up. Heard us out without interrupting. We document, she replied eventually. We call the pediatrician, a trauma therapist for Jacob. And you? She glanced at me. Stop justifying their behavior as help, Sarah nodded. And if they're operating some kind of unlicensed daycare, they always craved an audience for their control. I remembered Helen's schedules, Richard's lecturing tone, the HOA moms gushing over Helen's calm. The urgency in my chest calmed. Not anger, not yet, but intention. I pulled out my phone's notes. Okay, I said. Step 1, take a picture of the bruise. Step 2, pediatrician appointment. Step 3, get a therapist. Step 4, whatever. After that, the pediatrician noted down the bruise and my shaking. You're not exaggerating, she said. Shaking a baby is never discipline. Jacob began sessions with Dr. Renee Calloway, who opened doors through play. His initial drawing was a square with no windows, a stick person with a round open mouth. That's the quiet room, he said to her. You're not supposed to tell. I met Marcus Hale, a pro bono lawyer with warm eyes and a statutory memory, through a friend of a friend. If your parents care for more than one unrelated child on a regular basis, they require a license, he said. Even if it's just grandkids, evidence of physical or emotional abuse calls for mandatory reporting. He pushed a list across the table. CPS, licensing board, police, non-emergency, evidence, I said. The word heavy and right. Sarah and I took a block past our parents' house on Saturday, parking behind crepe myrtles. I felt like a teenager sneaking out, but the stakes were real. With my borrowed camera's telephoto lens, I watched a boy I didn't know walk across the lawn. Helen pulled him by the wrist, the same shape of Leo's bruise. I pressed record. My hands weren't shaking. Chloe posted to 2 moms in the Facebook exchange group. Helen's a saint, one wrote. She quiets kids down when no one else can. My flesh crawled. We harvested logs. Time-stamped video. Audio on a small recorder Jacob carried in his backpack on days I had to leave him for an hour before school pickup. If you cry, you lose. Richard's voice growled on one recording. No sound, Helen chimed, sweet enough to hurt. Marcus assisted us in filing, keeping my name off of anything that could find its way to them quickly. They can't hit back if they don't know where to shoot, he said. Your first concern is safety. Anonymous reports are acceptable. You've made the correct decision. Leo laughed once more at home, small bubbles bursting against my collarbone. Jacob slept through an entire night. I sat on the kitchen floor outside their doors, allowing my body to learn how to unclench. It's difficult work to unclench, I thought. When CPS requested interviews, I replied to every question. Are you ready to see your parents? The worker asked softly. Yes, I told them, amazed at how simple. I believe I already did. They arrived on a Tuesday. 2 CPS workers, 1 licensing investigator, 1 uniformed police officer to keep the air from igniting. Sarah and I trailed behind in my car, parking a half block away. I did not need to be there. I needed to be there. Helen held the door open, smiling her best kindergarten teacher smile. Hello, what a surprise. We've had some reports, the chief investigator, Miss Patel, replied, crisp but gentle. We'll have to see the children you care for and the facilities you occupy. Reports. Helen laughed again a little. From whom? People like to take down fine women. Ma'am, Miss Patel said, this is procedure. May we enter? Richard stood behind her, jaw set. We have rights and responsibilities, the licensing officer said, glancing at a clipboard. Are you childcare licensed? We're family, Helen said, indignant. We're grandparents. Are all of the children you are caring for relatives? Miss Patel asked. Helen's smile faltered. Well, neighbors ask for assistance sometimes. We'll have to look at your log, the officer said. They toured the house. I stood in the sidewalk space between 2 cars, breathing, fogging the window's edge. Helen's living room seemed tiny. A boy around 3 stood with a pacifier dangling from his lip, wide eyes. Miss Patel crouched down to his level. Hi, buddy. Can I see your arm? I saw it from here, faint crescent marks where fingers had dug in. My vision tunneled. Chloe's hand found my shoulder. I hadn't realized she'd arrived until she squeezed. Steady, she murmured. Let the process work. Richard gestured grandly to the hallway. We use the spare room for naps, he said, voice in sermon mode. The officer stepped inside, cameras out. One photographed the closet, shelves with labeled bins, a small stool, a latch. Ordinary things can be instruments. Why this latch? Miss Patel inquired. To prevent the door from sagging, Helen replied too hastily. The licensing officer measured, jotted, frowned. Sir, the hardware is on the outside. Richard's eyes shifted over them. Kids require limits, he declared. Patchy parents these days. Miss Patel declined to respond. Mr. Whitman, did you ever tell a child cry and lose? He snorted. It's idiomatic. Did you ever shake an infant as a form of discipline? Absolutely not, Helen snapped, heat seeping past her veneer. We restart fussing. It's a technique. There is no safe version of shaking, Miss Patel said, tone flat. Where is your first aid kit? Do you have records of incidents, injuries? Helen went to grab a binder. Richard deflected her hand with a headshake tiny, a marital cue they believed invisible. The police officer caught it. "Ma'am," he addressed Helen, "step aside, please." Helen's face contorted into acted-upon offense. "How dare you enter my house and accuse us? We raised Anna into a good woman. We know children." My name shattered in the air like a plate. Miss Patel looked toward the window as if perceiving me. She couldn't see me. She perceived someone like me 100 times a year. Ma'am," she said, "for the children's safety, we're issuing an emergency cease and desist. No childcare pending investigation. The non-relative child will be released to his legal guardian immediately. You will not be alone with minors who are not your legal dependents." Richard's jaw worked. "This is slander." "It's documentation," the licensing officer replied. A car pulled up.
Maya Brooks, the boy's mother, leapt out, hair unbrushed, shoes mismatched, eyes blazing. "Max!" she exclaimed, scooping up her son. He wrapped around her neck, shoulders trembling with relief. Helen stretched out towards them. Maya flinched as if presented with a snake. "Don't touch my child." Robert moved forward. "You folks don't know how to discipline." I opened my car door, stepped out onto the sidewalk before I realized I had. Chloe hissed. Anna, but made no attempt to stop me. "Dad," I said, the word past tense. He spun, fear flickering not at me, but at disruption. "Anna," he told me, voice a warning, "go home. This is taken care of." "It will be," I replied, "just not by you." Helen's gaze fell to Leo, where Chloe now had him held across the street. "You brought the baby after your melodrama the other day." "You shook him," I told her, voice calm, loud enough to carry. "You taught Jacob silence is obedience, pain is order. I'm finished with your curriculum." Miss Patel intervened between us, palms out. "Let's maintain space, please." Richard gestured toward me. "She's unstable. She always was." Chloe laughed, staccato. "She's the most stable person here." Helen attempted one final strategy. "Anna, forgive. Family is family." "Family is safety," I told her. "Everything else is ancestry." I observed professionals do what I'd once pleaded my parents to do: prioritize children. Papers signed, photos taken, the latch on the closet unscrewed, bagged for evidence. Marcus came, tipping his head to officers he addressed by name. Maya expressed thanks with a glance, mercy and anger in equal amounts. The cars departed, leaving the house smaller than I had ever known it. Richard shouted, "You think you're holy, Anna? You'll raise weak children who shatter." I spun around. Better weak than shattered. He winced. For the first time, a human man stood in place of the monolith. It didn't make me compassionate. It made things clear. Investigations go at the speed of paper. Headlines do not. A mom's group in our neighborhood lit up. So did my email. I did not comment. I cooked dinner, snapped photos of nothing moments. The curl of Leo's foot asleep. Jacob's whole face joke-making. We discovered a new apartment with sunlight like a promise. Jacob, in therapy, discovered his body was a messenger, not an affliction. "Where do you feel safe?" Dr. Calloway asked. He nodded toward his chest. "When Mom hugs me here." She nodded. "That's home." I began EMDR with Dr. Patel, no relation. Memory came back in chunks I could handle. I learned names. Gaslighting, intermittent reinforcement, trauma conditioning. Naming is power. It clarifies fog into a map. Chloe organized a meal train until I threatened to marry her out of thanks. Sarah visited Sundays, braided Jacob's hair. Boys can get braids, thank you. And instructed me in her banana bread recipe, a tradition for not sobbing as it cooks. One evening, thunder drawing our windows, Jacob crawled into my bed. "Mom," he whispered, "will I ever be loud?" "You're already loud," I said, kissing his forehead. "Loud with kindness, loud with truth." "What about Leo?" "He'll learn from you." We spent Saturdays at the park. Leo learning grass. Jacob learning laughter equals winning. I watched them race under a sky that didn't ask them to be small. This is what breaking the cycle looks like. Not courtrooms or headlines, but a child who sleeps without flinching at a hinge.
Months later, licensing revoked my parents' ability to care for unrelated children. CPS ended the case with required parenting classes they could attend or disregard. The issue wasn't their rehabilitation, it was our liberty. I never went back to their home. I changed my number, then my name on the mailbox. The past can send a letter, it cannot open your door. On the 1-year anniversary of Mark's passing, we went to White Rock Lake in the car with banana bread and bubbles. "To Dad," said Jacob, seriously, blowing a glitter into the wind. Leo clapped. Sorrow and thanksgiving stood side by side in my ribcage, no fight for dominance. That night, I wrote a letter to my sons for someday. If someone tells you love is silence, that hurt teaches, leave. If your body tells you to run, run. If your mind tells you to name it, name it. I signed our names, mine, theirs, Mark's, because family is a circle drawn, not a trap inherited. Before Jacob went to bed, he lingered in the doorway. "Mom, thank you for returning that day." I swallowed. "Thank you for inviting me to." He nodded, pleased with our transaction of courage, and padded into his room. Leo babbled in the monitor, a language of tomorrow. In the good, hard, unquiet that remained, I realized something I'd never been allowed to believe. I'm not breakable for feeling. I'm resilient for refusing to forget. When the past knocks, I'll look through the peephole, recognize the face, and choose not to open. I have work to do. Lunches to pack, drawings to tape to the fridge, laughter to practice, a home to tend. Here, soft is not an insult. Loud is not a crime. The only quiet room is a pillow fort with fairy lights and books. The only rule is simple, final. Everybody gets to be safe.